This is the vibraphone. Compared to most of the rest of our percussion instruments, there's quite a bit of technology. If I don't use the pedal, it's rather a dry sound like this. But with the pedal, and the other piece of technology on the instrument I think is very interesting is the motor. If I don't use the motor, this is the sound. But if I switch the motor on, a rather pleasing sound, I think you'll agree. This is a cello bow, but a double bass bow will work just as well. And you simply draw the bow across each note. So a rather beautiful instrument, and rather versatile too. This is a xylophone, probably the most recognizable of our tuned percussion instruments. The notes are made of wood, and the instrument is nearly always played with hard mallets. You'll hear that in a moment. But one of its chief characteristics is its ability to cut through the most dense of orchestral textures. So very interesting and a very characterful sound. This is a marimba, probably the largest of our tuned percussion instruments. Rather like the xylophone, the notes are made of wood, but unlike the xylophone, the mallets that we use are nearly always soft mallets. And the way we sustain a sound on the marimba is by rapidly doing a tremolo with the two sticks. A beautiful sounding instrument, particularly at the lower end of the instrument. At the top end of the instrument, perhaps not so resonant. The glockenspiel, or orchestral bells as it's sometimes known, is traditionally a series of metal notes, always played with hard sticks compared with the vibraphone, which is soft mallets. It can be used very delicately, or more forcefully. So again, a very versatile, sometimes charming, sometimes forceful instrument, but no matter how it's played, will always cut through an orchestral texture. This is a bass drum, traditionally a military instrument and most commonly used in military circles with a pair of cymbals. Sometimes it can sound rather more mellow and quiet. And sometimes to sustain the sound we need two mallets. And we can create some quite interesting crescendo effects with them. So an instrument that can be quite frightening, but also really quite a strong foundation for the orchestral texture. The tam-tam had its genesis in the Far East. It's a large piece of beaten metal, quite thick. This one's about 34 inches across. And we play it nearly always with a large, soft mallet, like this one. And we can capitalize on that by sustaining the sound with repeated strokes quite gently and create really some quite extraordinary crescendo effects. One of the most special sounds, I think, in the orchestra, it comes from its enormous range of frequencies from very low to very high. These are snare drums, sometimes called side drums, and they're called side drums because they were traditionally played at the side of the body in military circles. We can play with snares off in that way or with snares on. And the snare on is a different kind of a sound. It adds a different kind of crispness to the sound. Here's the snare off, and here's the snare on. Here's a roll, that's what we call it. Here's a roll with the snares off. And with the snare on. But perhaps the snare drum is most familiar in a marching type of context.